The morning sun painted the polished marble halls of St. Clair's Academy in soft golden light. Students filled the corridors, chatting about weekend plans, laughter echoing through the air. Amid the noise, one girl sat quietly by the window, hands resting on her lap, her wheelchair positioned beside the glass. Her name was Emily Donovan, the daughter of Thomas Donovan, one of the city's most powerful CEOs. At 17, Emily should have been living the carefree life of any high school senior. But a car accident 5 years earlier had changed everything. It had stolen her mother's life and left Emily paralyzed from the waist down. Overnight, her world became one of sympathy, whispers, and pity. At school, people were polite but distant. They smiled at her, but no one really saw her. It was as if her wheelchair created an invisible wall between her and everyone else. She heard the whispers, people saying she was lucky to be rich, lucky to have everything. But they didn't understand that money couldn't buy what she truly wanted, to feel normal, to belong. That morning, as she rolled through the courtyard, she passed two girls whispering. "Did you see the prom board?" one said. "Everyone's got a date, except Emily." "Well," the other laughed softly, "who'd want to go with someone who can't even dance?" Their laughter echoed in Emily's ears. She kept moving, her hands tightening on her wheels, pretending she hadn't heard. Across town, Jack Turner was finishing his delivery route for the day. At 38, he was a single father trying to raise his 16-year-old son, Ethan. Jack's wife had died of cancer when Ethan was 10, and since then, life had been a series of double shifts, scraped bills, and quiet resilience. Despite everything, Jack and Ethan were close. They didn't have much, but they had each other, and a home filled with laughter, warmth, and an old guitar Jack strummed every night after dinner. That afternoon, when Jack pulled up to St. Clair's to pick Ethan up, he noticed a girl by the school steps struggling to lift her bag into her wheelchair. Before Jack could react, Ethan was already out of the truck. "Hey," he said gently, jogging over. "Need a hand?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. The strap stuck in the wheel. Ethan crouched, untangled the strap, and handed her the bag. "There you go. Problem solved." "Thank you," she said softly. "You're Ethan Turner, right?" "Yeah." "You're Emily Donovan." Her smile faded a little. "Everyone knows me because of my dad." He shrugged. "Nah. I think people should know you because you're tough enough to face them all." That made her smile again. "You're different." That night at dinner, Ethan couldn't stop talking about her. "Dad, she's really nice, but people treat her like she's fragile. It's sad." Jack leaned back, sipping his coffee. "Sometimes people avoid what they don't understand. But remember, son, kindness isn't complicated. One small gesture can mean everything to someone who's been overlooked." Those words stayed with Ethan. A few days later, the talk of prom filled every hallway. Posters, balloons, girls squealing over dresses, it was all anyone could talk about. Emily, meanwhile, pretended not to care. She told herself it didn't matter. But that night, as she stared at her reflection, she whispered, "Just once, I wish someone would ask me." The next day at lunch, while everyone chatted in their groups, Ethan walked straight up to her table. Conversations died down as people noticed. "Hey, Emily," he said with a nervous grin. "You doing anything next Friday?" She blinked, confused. "Not really." "Why?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Prom's next Friday. And I was wondering, would you go with me?" The cafeteria went silent. A few students exchanged shocked glances. Emily's cheeks flushed. "Wait, you want to go with me?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," Ethan said simply. "I'd be honored if you said yes." Her throat tightened. "You don't have to do this out of pity." "It's not pity," he said softly. "It's because I think you're incredible." You deserve to have fun like everyone else. For a moment, the world stood still. Then, tears filled her eyes as she whispered, yes. By the next morning, everyone in school knew. Some students called Ethan brave. Others said he just wanted attention. But Ethan didn't care. When he saw Emily smile, none of the whispers mattered. On prom night, Jack polished his old red pickup until it gleamed. Ethan wore a rented tuxedo, his tie crooked. Emily arrived in a sky-blue gown that shimmered under the porch light. Her hair was curled, a soft crown framing her gentle face. "You look beautiful," Ethan said, genuine awe in his voice. She smiled. "You don't look so bad yourself." Jack drove them to the school gym, his heart swelling with pride. As they entered, heads turned. Whispers floated again, but this time, Emily didn't shrink back. She rolled forward, head high, her hand resting confidently in Ethan's. When the slow music began, Ethan turned to her. "Wanna dance?" She laughed nervously. "Ethan, I can't." "Sure you can," he said, kneeling beside her. "We'll make our own dance." He took her hand, moving gently to the rhythm. The two swayed together, awkwardly, beautifully. For the first time in years, Emily laughed without holding back. Around them, silence fell, then quiet applause. At the back of the room, a tall man stood watching, eyes glistening. It was Thomas Donovan, her father. For years, he had drowned his guilt in work, trying to fill the void his wife's death had left. He'd built a business empire, donated millions to charity, but hadn't realized how lonely his daughter had become. Seeing her happy, truly happy, broke something inside him. After the dance, as Ethan wheeled Emily outside for some fresh air, Thomas approached. "Emily," he said softly. She looked up in surprise. "Dad?" He nodded and turned to Ethan. "You're the young man who asked my daughter to prom." "Yes, sir," Ethan said nervously. Thomas looked at him for a long moment before saying, "Thank you. You gave her something I never could, joy." Ethan smiled. "She gave me that too, sir." Later that week, Thomas invited Ethan and Jack to dinner. Jack felt awkward in his old jacket among the mansion's glittering chandeliers, but Emily's laughter made everyone comfortable. Ethan cracked jokes. Slowly, the distance between two very different worlds disappeared. After dinner, Thomas pulled Jack aside. "Mr. Turner, I owe you a debt I can never repay," he said quietly. "Your son showed my daughter more kindness than anyone ever has." Jack shook his head. "Kindness isn't a debt, Mr. Donovan. It's a gift anyone can give." Those words struck Thomas deeply. Weeks passed, and something remarkable began to happen. Emily and Ethan became inseparable, friends who shared dreams, secrets, and laughter. Jack began visiting often, fixing things around the Donovan estate, and slowly, a friendship grew between him and Thomas. One afternoon, Emily came home to find her father pacing the living room. "Sweetheart," he said, "I've been thinking. I want to start something new, a foundation to help kids with disabilities get education, therapy, and opportunities." Her eyes widened. "Dad, that's amazing." He smiled softly. "It's called the Turner Donovan Foundation. Inspired by you and Ethan." The foundation launch drew national attention. Reporters asked Thomas why he, a billionaire, had suddenly turned his focus toward inclusion and accessibility. He simply said, "Because one act of kindness can change a life. My daughter reminded me of that. And a young man and his father showed me how." Years passed. Emily graduated with honors and became an advocate for disability rights. Ethan studied physiotherapy and joined her foundation, helping children overcome the same barriers she once faced. At one event, surrounded by reporters and supporters, a journalist asked Emily about her story. She smiled, eyes sparkling, and said, that night at prom wasn't about a dance, it was about being seen. For the first time, someone looked at me and didn't see a wheelchair. He saw me. Ethan, standing beside her, squeezed her hand. And I'll keep seeing you, always. In the crowd, Jack and Thomas stood side by side, watching the young pair speak with pride. Jack turned to Thomas with a quiet smile. You see? Sometimes, all it takes is one simple act of kindness to start a chain reaction. Thomas nodded, eyes wet. You were right, Jack. You were right all along. That evening, as the sun set over the city skyline, Emily wheeled herself to the balcony, the cool breeze brushing her face. Ethan joined her, resting his hand gently on hers. You ever think about that night? He asked. She laughed. Every day. It changed everything. It changed me too, he said softly. Because asking you that question was the best decision I ever made. She smiled at him, the golden light dancing in her eyes. Then I'm glad you did. And for a long, quiet moment, they just watched the sun fade into the horizon, two people whose worlds had collided through a single, selfless act of courage. Because sometimes, the smallest question, can I be your date? Can open the door to love, healing, and the realization that kindness is still humanity's greatest power.